this, our panel on mindfulness, meditation, burnout, and how not to have a meltdown in the coming 12 months. I'm Glynnis MacNicol. Rachel Sklar and I on the list. Rachel Sklar and I. Our panel tonight, David Gelles is actually going to be moderating. I'm the introducer. David is a business reporter, star business reporter for the New York Times. I'm sure you recognize his byline if you're a Times reader, and also has a book coming out called Mindful Work. It's coming out in March.
Yeah.
March 12th. March 12th.
10.
March 10th, but you can pre-order it on Amazon or a website of your choice. And there's stress balls back there if you feel like you need to get a little stressed out. With that information on it. Excuse me. Bea Arthur is, and I'm going to get this absolutely correct, a licensed mental health counselor. You did it. Co-founder and runs a site and business called In Your Corner, which provides online therapy and coaching, and is a wonderful, wonderful resource. And I know many people who've used it, and very, very helpful.
Can't tell.
It's all anonymous. I only know because they've told me. Sorry for hovering. And this is Dina Kaplan, who founded and runs a business called The Path, which you might have read about in the New York Times style section last month.
One of our frequent passions here.
The Path, and you can go online and see where classes are and register for classes.
Or you can just come talk to me after.
Yeah.
What we do on that list.
It
Separate
teaches
separate from the list.
ancient meditation techniques in a modern way to a modern audience. So there you go. And I'm, as I said, Glynnis MacNicol, and one of the inspirations for this panel on this subject was I wrote an article for Elle.com earlier last year about how I burned out. And the response to that article was so overwhelming. And there's so many people who wrote me saying they experienced similar symptoms or were experiencing them, or were panicking, didn't know what to do, that we thought it warranted a panel about that, and also how to deal with that and get through it and cope. And also thrive, because it's not the end of the world. So here we go. David, over to you.
Thank you. And thanks all for being here. Hello?
Hashtag XXZen.
Yeah. Hashtag
There we go.
XXZen.
Hashtag XXZen. That's the title of my next book. Well, I want to reflect that we have a panel of experts here because you have a stressed out moderator and 3 stressed out panelists. And we know what we're talking about. And it's appropriate that we're doing this here in New York City, which I think has probably got to be the most stressed out, neurotic, probably burned out city in the planet. And I'm sure everyone in the audience has their own story about this. But we want to hear, at least initially, from the stories of our panelists. And then we want to hear from the audience, because I'm sure that everyone in the audience, in addition to having their own story, has something to teach everyone else in this room. And I want to go back to Glynnis, because she mentioned this story she wrote for Elle. It's a very powerful article. And if you could, just very briefly, kind of walk through your own story. What happened that led you to really be burned out in a dark room watching Golden Girl reruns?
That's what happened. I sort of came into my professional career at the same time that internet was taking off. I was a media reporter, 2005, 2006, and like everyone else, saw this as such advantage and a coup to sort of leapfrog over all the steps that you used to have to take as a writer or a reporter and just speed through it all. And the result of that ambition and ability to do so was that I was working 20-hour days, 7 days a week for 5 years straight, where I would sleep with my BlackBerry. And this all seems very common now. It shouldn't. But sleeping with my BlackBerry, having it go off at all hours, constantly being on, constantly responding, just a non-stopness to it. And at first that was certainly a thrill, and it resulted in some professional success. But sort of at the height of this, when I had a rather high-profile job and was making quite good money, and I was writing full-time, and it all seemed to have come together. I would get up in the morning and sit at my desk with my window that looked out on my street in Brooklyn, and the garbage truck would go by, and I would just sit there and think, really wish I was a garbage truck driver. I would have this very conscious thought process where I would stare at the garbage truck and think, he gets to ride around Brooklyn and picks up the garbage, and then he doesn't have to be on the internet, and he gets to move away from his desk. And it got to the point where, it's totally true. It got to the point where I was leaving my job and had been offered a very high-profile job, which even when we had this discussion earlier, David was surprised I turned down. And I sat in this interview and said, I don't think that I can do this. I have fantasies about being the garbage truck driver. And I said this out loud. And to the credit of the people trying to hire me, they were so understanding, and they said, you just need a vacation. Take 2 weeks off, get offline, have a break, go on a holiday, and come back and you'll be fine. And I said, that seems reasonable. I hadn't had more than 1 day off in I don't know how many years. So I did just that. I checked out. I went to Florida. I visited my sister. I took a little road trip. It was all very fantastic. And I came back and thought, oh, okay, I'm ready to go again. And I sat down and they said, here's the story. Go write 75 headlines for it. And I said, I'm going to find you someone else for this job because I can't do this. I had like a panic attack. And then I didn't do anything for the next 3 months. And I want to emphasize that I am not independently wealthy, and I should not have been living in New York doing nothing for 3 months. But I didn't do anything, and I would literally sort of watch my bank account diminish as if I was watching someone else's bank account diminish. I was very removed from everything that was going on, and I would get up in the morning and watch Golden Girls on the TV and think, I wish I was a retired person in 1985. It's completely irrational. And to the point where I would go to events or parties, and Rachel can attest to this, and people would say, and as we all know, we live in New York, and they'd say, what do you do? And I would say, nothing. I don't do anything. And I would take and it was true, and I would take great pleasure in it. And so it got to such a point where I finally went back to work. Well, we started the list, essentially, is what happened, because it got to the point where I had to eat.
Thank you. And I think one of the things that's very damning in that story, which is that, oh, just take 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then it'll all be better. It's symptomatic of this idea that people have that the way that we're working is just the way it is and the way it should be, and you just need a brief break. And if you just take a little break, then all the habits that are creating this environment where we're totally burnt out, totally depleted, everything will be fixed. And we all know that that's not the case.
And the time for me to take the 2-week vacation where it would have been helpful, I was so far past that. That was like a year prior to the point where I took the 2 weeks would have been the point where I should have taken the 2 weeks. At that point, I wouldn't have considered taking that again.
So I want to return to this theme of that it's not just about taking a quick break, but actually changing some of our behaviors. But first, I want to hear Dina's burnout story, which is not.
I kind of feel like we're in an AA meeting. I mean,
Pretty much anyone in New York can join that meeting now. Yeah, this is a little bit of a whopper as well. Thank you, I never knew that. I wish my story included the Golden Girls. Like Glynnis, I was working absolutely nonstop. I founded my first company called Work TV, and it was so exciting. It was sort of everything I dreamed of, and my dad's a professor at Harvard Business School, so now I'm finally running a company. But I did nothing but work for 7 years, all day, at night. At night, even in the early evening, I would usually be hosting something, or hosting a dinner, or speaking at a conference, maybe doing press, every weekend, just nonstop for 7 years. And then, well, actually, some of you guys will know this. I started this thing. So I was running Live, I was COO for most of the time. And then I started this thing called Founders Club for all the top internet founders in the city, really designed to promote the New York startup ecosystem before it was what it is now. And then I was really into women founders like Rachel and Glynnis, so I started this thing called Calliope Group to bring together all the top women founders from the East Coast. And so I'm hoping to run all 3 of these and super highly functioning and impressed all the time and working a lot of internal operations. But nobody knew because I didn't even admit to myself that I was having panic attacks. And so for my last 2 years of helping to run Blip, I actually couldn't walk down the street by myself. I mean, at all, like ever. So, like a good COO, I just solved the problem. I didn't tell my doctor, my parents, my best friend. I didn't even admit it to myself. I just solved the problem, and I just took taxis everywhere on a startup salary, which basically meant I didn't do much else. We'd get to work, and come home, or try to find someone to walk with me. what would happen in the height of a panic attack? I don't know if you guys ever had one. You feel like you're about to pass out, you're about to faint. And so one day I was standing at the corner of Broome and Lafayette, because our office was right there, but I had to cross 2 intersections to get to my office. And I remember this day, it was November 11th, 2001. 2011, and I couldn't move across the street. Like, my hair was perfect, I got my hair blown out, my clothes were beautiful, I'm wearing high heels, I looked perfect. But I couldn't move across the street. I remember leaning against this utility pole, just praying the light wouldn't turn green because I'd have to cross. And I just told myself, like, this is it. All my dreams of like future success of the company, all the press I'm getting, which is all I dreamed of, being like respected, and never having to work again, like none of that is worth not feeling healthy. So I went in and left the company that I founded, everything, just my entire life. I had nothing else in my life. And I just knew that I needed to live in the opposite part of the world, living the exact opposite life. So I booked a one-way ticket to Asia, to Indonesia, a little bit as an eat, pray, love joke to myself. I booked a one-way ticket to Bali, and flew 6 days later, and actually thought I'd be gone for 2 months, which seemed like a really long time. Just like I've been the most like ambitious person my whole life. And what I thought would be 2 months ended up being 2.5 years. And I spent 2.5 years traveling around the world, sort of learning to become a girl again, just trying to play the role of a guy, which I thought I had to do to be a successful woman founder. So I learned to be a girl again. I learned to conquer a lot of fears, which in the end meant building up the confidence to just be myself and say what was on my mind, which I never did with. And then the third part is that I really found meditation, and that absolutely changed my life and changed my brain and changed my ability to handle stress and think mindfully and act mindfully. And so I came back to the US 2.5 years later, a very different person. I actually had to get almost all new friends, except for you guys. I wore different clothes. It was basically, the meditation had literally changed me. Like, yeah, I came back with a different personality, liked myself a lot more, and have since decided to pay it forward, basically. Thanks to meditation, my life changed so dramatically. I thought what I did to learn it was really hard. I was in India, just like feces covered, like rooms, 120 degrees every day. Like, it was really hard. And I thought, it doesn't need to be this hard. So let me take what I was taught and pay it forward to people in the West and make it a little bit easier. Keep the techniques the same and make it easier for people to learn. And so I came back to the US, I started this company called Path, and people like Gene that come, which is so great, several other of you guys, it feels really, really good. It feels like I'm on my mission, I'm on my own path.
We'll return to the path. First, I want to hear from Bea. And I pressed Bea earlier. I said, tell me your burnout story. And somehow, some way, Bea is perhaps the one person in the room who hasn't gotten burned out by the city. That's not true. Okay.
Of course I have done.
Tell me your burnout story then.
Mine wasn't burnt out by the city. My burnout actually led me to start this company. But
I see a common theme here.
yeah, exactly. My story also involves the golden world.
Another common theme.
In that I was one of the more original stars of the show.
Bea's last name, as I said, is Bea Arthur. So.
And then I died. And then I got really into meditation. And I'm black, and I'm so glad. All of you. So yeah, it works. Get into it.
It's actually the panel on reincarnation.
Past life regression, all of that, it works. I believe in it too. It's the only way that, well, so I guess my burnout story. I'm a licensed, what'd you say?
Stay on top.
I was trying to recaps of my favorite Golden Girls episodes, but instead I'll talk about how I started the company. So it is called In Your Corner. We're rebranding. It's a new year, but I started a company called Pretty Padded Room 4 years ago in February, actually. And the reason I started it is because I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and after I graduated, I got into social work. And my favorite and longest job was as a domestic violence counselor. And most therapists, when they come out, just want to save the world and help the world. But that energy gets matched by an equal amount of opposite energy. I have 42 clients, most of whom are undocumented immigrants who have been in repeatedly abusive domestic violence situations, had kids who were living on $200 a week in the Bronx with like 3 kids. So I got burnt out by their energy. And for somebody who believes in, I'm first generation, my family's from Ghana, somebody who believes in capitalism and lifting yourself up and doing everything right, and it will result in an equal and opposite reaction. I was just realizing on it hourly, literally hourly basis, like that wasn't true, and that life wasn't fair. And then I was also, people think therapists make a lot of money, but as a domestic violence counselor, I was making $38,000. I went to Columbia, so my student loans started to kick in, and I somehow lived in Manhattan, same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, this will work out somehow, I'll just like meditate about it. So, but that, they don't take that at the bank, and my super didn't take that. But I was just getting really like, just the way my life was, and just your survival, like we were talking about, like driving it. A lot of it is just coping, like really just like waking up and getting there. So I started to really like feel like the burdens of my clients and the burdens of not being able to eat and pay my rent like every month, and just like how did this happen when I'm 25 and 26? And as a therapist, we're often taught, like be mindful, be gratitude, teach your clients the here and now and stuff, but that doesn't matter when you leave the room. When you have these kids and you only have $200 and you have to give you a mental card just so you can come into the session. And so I got really, my burnout was actually a backlash against the field that I was in. I was kind of like, this doesn't work. Like, they're in this room, and of course they feel better because I believe in you, but you go home and life is so hard, and that's not right. So I just got burnt out on how hard, not just New York, but the world was. Like I said, a lot of these people came from Columbia and like really believed in the American dream. So why was it so different for them? Why was it so hard? And I remember thinking, I don't want to be mindful. I don't want to be grateful. Like, fuck that. Like, I'm mad. And I'd also, the reason I ended up in that job is because my first company failed. So I was super depressed. Like, literally, so depression, it really feels like you're like in a bubble almost. Like you're saying, like, you can't cross the street. Like, nothing is happening. Like, you feel like you're at the bottom of the ocean. Like, you almost don't feel anything. In fact, this is an aside from the mental health piece. Like how on antidepressant commercials, like the small print at the end of the commercial says, may cause suicidal ideation. It's because like clinical depression looks like you don't feel anything, you have no energy for anything. So the reason doctors have to be careful, psychiatrists have to be careful with giving you a dosage of antidepressants is because some people feel a little bit better and then they feel like they can do something about their situation and then they focus on it. Like, because it's true, like when you're like truly like at the bottom, you don't have energy to do anything, and then they feel, but you think about it a lot, and then you can do it. Anyways, I'm really doing it now. But so with Pretty Padded Room, which is the original name of my company, I really wanted to embrace the strength part of it, because you feel really powerless, right? When you're depressed, you feel like you can't do anything about the situation. It's never going to get better. And with Pretty Padded Room, like it just came to me, like I wanted a nice place to go crazy. I wanted to be mad about it. I wanted it to be okay. I wanted to tell me something that I wasn't actually crazy and that I was right to feel this way. And so we did. We started it. It was just me and 5 of my friends, and we immediately found an audience. Like I went to try millennial women who were like having all these transitions, having all these questions, and didn't know what to do about it. And it worked. And we've had clients from the very beginning. Now we're opening up to men. But it's true. I'm learning. You wouldn't think so, but they do. So yeah. So that's Pretty Padded Room, and now we're in the corner. So yeah, and we're not just therapy, which is online therapy, but also life coaching and that meditation, which is really, really helpful.
That's very nice. Glynnis, you were burnt out, you were comatose watching reruns, then you started with us. I gotta believe it's more than just starting your own company that has allowed you not to get burned out over the last few years. So what have you changed about your life, about your routine, about the way you handle your digital diet, the stresses of living in New York City, that's allowed you to manage somewhat better?
I've become really good at saying no. I think we talk on the list a lot, and I think saying no for women is particularly difficult, and for young women especially difficult. I'm not that young anymore, so it's maybe a little bit easier. But I say no all of the time. I say no the way I made this joke in an article that like a 2-year-old says no to vegetables. Because I constantly say no.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very, the burning out is, as anybody will tell you who's gone through it, is very terrifying. It's when you sort of come back from it, it's this sense of there's no value to anything. And especially if you're a driven person, which is often what leads to the burnout in the first place, you suddenly lost your sense of self because you don't want all these things anymore. So I'm very, very wary of, I was a media reporter, and after I eventually, I don't have a TV anymore, which I don't know what you need anymore, but I'm very careful about not overdosing on news. I try and measure when I respond to my emails. I stay off Twitter. I try to know less, and not know less about the world. I do try, because I think there's a whole other discussion we had about FOMO, about seeing what everyone else is doing and seeing the highlight reel of other people's lives, and human nature sort of pushes you to think you have to keep up, or makes you see what you perceive as the lack in yours. I'm very careful about knowing less about other people's lives. I don't need to know the minutiae of what everyone else is doing, and that was a big deal. It's just not necessary. It's okay to know what you're like, and that was a big thing. So I really try and push back on feeling the need to respond to people in the moment. I'm very careful about my own time, and I'm very careful about how I let other people's lives infiltrate my life, whether that's through Instagram or Facebook.
And on that last point, was it a matter of comparison and feeling like if everyone else had all these experiences and all these things, then my life was somehow inadequate because I didn't?
Or I wasn't keeping up. I think it's personally, it's less a jealousy thing, although I'm very aware of how easy it is to feel envious of other people, especially when you feel like you're not at your best or not doing what you want to do. Then this sense of, and I'm still prone to it. I can still go on Instagram for a second and think, what am I doing? This sense of like everyone else is not just running the race and running it fast, they're running it well and they're enjoying it. And I'm lying on the floor watching Golden Girls and hating everything. And the truth of the matter is that's not true about everyone else, and it's probably not true about yourself. But even drawing those conclusions, which is so difficult not to come to, they just come to you so naturally that the only sort of solution I have found to that is to check out pretty carefully.
And I don't know about you, but I certainly find myself when I'm in this kind of psychosis of comparing myself to others. I compare myself not to one other person, but I can compare my own experiences and accomplishments to the collective body of everyone else's accomplishments.
But all that, not the highlight reel of their. I know we talk about this pretty frequently, but the highlight reel we see on Facebook or Instagram, which is you're comparing yourself to the highlight reel of the entire world with no context and no truth and no anything, but you're like, everyone else is doing everything good and I'm not doing anything at all.
And so my own version of neurosis is when the Sunday Times arrives on Saturday, which is in New York City, I go through the paper and I get mad at myself that I didn't write every single article on the cover. And that's potentially unrealistic, but it happens. And I have to train myself to take it easier on myself. It's a process. Dina, you started your own company. You burned out doing that. You came back and you started another company.
We're so in it right now.
uh,
But we were on the cover of the paper recently.
That's great.
Thank
That's
you.
great. But this afternoon, I walked in and said, "How are you?" Said, "I'm stressed."
Yeah, I am.
So what are you doing differently that you're not going to wind up paralyzed on the corner?
I know. I actually had lunch today with my best friend, which I would not have done during the Blip days. It was everything personal. It was actually not just pushed off to the nights or weekends. It was sort of pushed off a year. And she looked at me and she said, "You're right back in Blip land." I'm like, oh my God. We are really deep in operations right now. What am I doing differently? I have set up rules, which are really, really great, which I do not keep the last 3 nights, and that's why I'm in this state. But the rules are no screens of any sort, no exceptions after 11 p.m. And I almost always, actually last night, but anyway, I almost always keep that. So 11 p.m., no exceptions, it's just all off.
Can you start again at 12:01?
No, there's such a light break. And then the mornings, and this is absolutely the key thing. This is going to sound easy. This is like, I don't have a thing with food. I don't get the food thing. I'm like, just eat less if you want to eat less. Sorry, don't hate me for saying that. That is not my thing. My thing is this. So, wake up, exercise. I run every morning, even 1 mile, 8 minutes. We could do that. And then I do yoga for about 17 minutes, and then I meditate for maybe half an hour, 20 minutes to 45 minutes. Until that whole thing is done, I am not allowed to turn on my phone.
That's great.
And whatever it is.
We can all do that if we can all run an 8-minute mile.
No, I just run for a little bit. Like,
Or
run
something
and not
you do. I think the tough thing is that prior to the internet, you had to put the effort into engaging, and what's happened with the internet is that you have to put the effort into this engagement. And because everything in your work life is geared to keeping you engaged and making you feel as if you are obligated to stay engaged, that effort to disengage requires so much self-control and energy that the reward is not, there's not a reward from society, there's not like some medal you win, the only reward is your sanity, which you don't know is its own reward until you use it.
But actually, I can make this even stronger. And I know,
Please.
let me be really clear about what this does. This is an act of self-love that makes you literally 50 times more productive. So, for example, I spent the weekend with Sharon Salzberg after Thanksgiving. I met her on Monday. It's one of the most famous compassion meditation teachers probably in the world. Meditated all weekend. Saw the power of it. So woke up Tuesday and did this routine exactly. When you do this, you get in this mode of, here's all this stuff coming at me, but let me honor myself for getting done. Shocking ideas there. Let me get done what I need to get done today. Okay, first. So then after I did this routine, because this routine sets you in the mode to be proactive and mindful about every activity that you do. You run, you do some yoga or stretching, and you're just staring at your eyes here, and then you meditate. Then you get every single thing that you need to do that day done off your plate. Then something happens. You are so happy with yourself. Like, I love myself. I'm awesome. Look at all this stuff I just knocked off my to-do list. My ability to then satisfy everybody else's needs of me is 50 times higher. I had one of the most productive days of my entire life. So my work was better. I was super happy with myself. I was glowing when I saw people later in the day. They're like, you're really radiant. I'm like, yeah. I know it's so good about myself and getting done everything I need to get done. Whereas the internet, the email, the Facebook is all what tends to do other people really real. So it changes your life and it changes your productivity. In the end, your companies, whatever it is you're involved in, your writing, is so much more successful if you set yourself up for success with like that perfect morning routine.
And I think it's for you. I think that's your morning routine. There are a lot of other ones that are going to be equally impactful for everyone in this room.
Right.
Yeah, I think too, we're sensitive to the fact that not everyone owns their own company. You're often working on someone else's schedule, which is how I was working for many years. And I would say I'm not a huge meditator, but if you have never meditated before, just know that even 10 minutes is a game changer.
So what?
Yeah, 10 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time in your day. It's not. Like 10 minutes of actual meditation, I think it's a lot. It feels like a lot.
It can be very powerful. I think the common theme here is taking care of yourself, whatever that means.
Yes, whatever that means. Figure out what you want to do and do it. Yeah.
And key. So how do you take care of yourself?
Food is my thing. I have to say, like, since starting my company, I've gotten up and down like 20 pounds, like really big ranges. And what I learned from being a therapist and working with other therapists is that food, anything that is a distraction on your phone, Facebook, these provide numbing feelings, right? You'll just keep doing it so you're not feeling anything, right? So you can distract yourself from anything that feels bad. If you're stressed or depressed, you're not thinking about it if you're eating. And especially if you like food, you are delighted in it, right? Like, you know what I don't like? I've worn skirts in very extreme weather because my pants feel fit. Like, you know what I mean? So that's when you go, I'm like, ooh, am I healthy? Am I feeling better? You're not feeling better. I wear skirts all the time. But one thing that I'll say for sure, like when it comes to self-care, is like, you know, like, I feel like sometimes everybody has an all or nothing approach. Like, hearing you say 17 years ago, like running a mile, doing everything on your list, I go, well, I can't do that, you know, so I'm not even gonna try, you know. And so, like, one thing we say as therapists is to meet people where they are. And I finally started working with a coach, and she would start saying, you know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes will make a difference. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I'm constantly distracted. I can't do that. And she's like, all right, you're right. And so she actually like did some research for me, and she found me some research that said that like all it actually takes to get the feeling and the benefit of it, and to get into the discipline, because it takes practice. You're not going to be able to do this like, right away. It's 17 seconds. If you can linger on a good feeling, if you have this whole idea of getting everything on your list, my coach tells me to imagine getting everything on my list and sit in that feeling. That feels so good when I finish that reboot, when I finish my taxes. Like, God damn, I can get this done. Before I even get out of bed, I'm like, man, I am so ready. You know, like, then you're coming from a top-down level, right? Like, I have power over my situation. I am not, like, I don't have 12 things on my list. Like, I'm gonna get it done. And also, I still feel really good. You know, so really take the top-down approach. And she was right. I actually set my stopwatch on my phone. 17 seconds is all it takes. So when you're on a feeling time, don't be too attached to the outcome. It really helps to be attached to that mood and feeling. Because when you're attached to an outcome, that you're operating on a deficit because you need it. You need it to happen. Well, everything is better if you want to do it. Everything comes from love. It's just like need is like a fear. Acting out of fear versus acting out of love and want creates two different results. Even if you get it done, one will look very different. Think about something that's knit is because it's something to do as opposed to something. Nobody's gonna die. Nobody's gonna die if you don't. Nobody will die. Your family will still love you. Like nobody's gonna die if you don't get these things done. So really, just sit in the feeling. It takes 17 seconds, and it actually takes 17 seconds to lead into the next real good thing. So that's how I start my day. And this week I got 2 minutes and 52 seconds. I'll pause for applause.
And I learned something really valuable there, which is that when my pants stop fitting, I'll just wear my skirt.
It's so 2015.
You look very good in the coat.
They're common.
It's important, though, that taking care of ourselves doesn't need to take all day.
Right.
Just a short amount of time, be it in the morning and the evening, can do wonders, really. And mindfulness and meditation are in the panel discussions. I think we need to address these. Mindfulness is all the rage right now, and it's on 60 Minutes. Someone wrote a book about it. And businesses all over the country are employing mindfulness and meditation for a variety of reasons, to make their workers more productive, to reduce stress, to improve focus, and it is really catching on in a way that I think it never has in the mainstream before. A few thoughts on that. One, I think it speaks to this moment where we are. It says that right now, the way we're working just isn't working, and people from the boardroom to the factory floor recognize that, and in the right kind of companies are taking steps to try to address that. I think it also says that mindfulness and meditation, while once very much fringe parts of the culture and probably viewed as woo-woo, new age, mystical hooey, are squarely mainstream now. And part of that is the result of a huge body of scientific data that now very much backs up the validity and the impactfulness of certain types of meditation methods. And so mindfulness is certainly one that is out there that,
Can you,
please.
just for my benefit, maybe for other people who matter, like a quick definition of what constitutes mindfulness?
Sure. So it's important to note that there are a lot of different types of meditation. There's mindfulness meditation, there's transcendental meditation. You can go to the path and get kind of a crash course in meditation in the course of an hour. Mindfulness meditation is one of the most popular techniques today. It was popularized in its current fashion by a guy named John Kabat-Zinn, who wrote a bunch of great books and is still around and is really the grandfather of this movement. And he defines mindfulness as, I hope I get this right, paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. And if you unpack that, it kind of says, stop thinking about the future, paying attention in the present moment, on purpose, I missed the part, in a particular way, and non-judgmentally. So if you unpack that, paying attention, we're actually observing what's happening in a particular way. So we're not just kind of letting our attention flit about, but we're actually focused and trying to do something very specific. Paying attention in a particular way, in the present moment. So again, we're not paying attention to our thoughts about the future or our ruminations about the past, but we're paying attention to right now.
Or what's happening on your phone,
Or what's happening, absolutely. In the present moment, on purpose. So again, this notion of intention, that this is something we're doing proactively, and non-judgmentally. And that is really the key of the mindfulness part. And that's where I think a lot of the impact comes from. That it gets us out of this mode of judging that this is a good experience, this is a bad experience. Because if we notice what we do all day, it's that. It's, my feet hurt or my feet feel great. I'm hungry or I'm overstuffed. And this constant sense of giving qualitative labels to our experience traps us in this rat race, frankly, of always trying to find the perfect scenario. And that leads to a lot of kind of, well, if only I had this, or just imagine what it was like a week ago when everything was just perfect. And so mindfulness, that's mindfulness 101. It's been proven over 2,600 years roughly that the best way to cultivate mindfulness is through meditation. And so there is this form of mindfulness meditation, which through a series of exercises very much teaches you how to do that. So there are exercises that actually help you learn how to pay attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment over the last 30 or so years, scientists and academics have done a ton of research into mindfulness meditation. And what they found is that, in fact, it does reduce stress, it does improve focus, and in fact, it has physiological effects on the body. It improves the immune system, for example. And this, I think, has lent mindfulness meditation in particular a degree of credibility that is allowing it to break into the mainstream. So Aetna, the big health insurer up in Hartford, Connecticut, rolled out mindfulness meditation to thousands of their employees, and not only that, they're offering it as a service to their clients. And this is happening in companies all around the world. So that's mindfulness meditation in brief. It is happening in all sorts of law firms. I mean, I went down to a white shoe law firm in Wall Street and spent 2 hours with a bunch of associates doing mindfulness meditation not long ago. And it's just extraordinary that it's become that much a part of the real mainstream, and increasingly the mainstream business culture. So that's my spiel. And read more about it in my book. So, self-promotion.
What's your book called?
My book is called, Glynnis has the stress ball.
Mindful
Work, How Meditation is Changing Business from the Inside Out. And so I wanted to address that not only to plug my book, but also to point out that these techniques that, again, even just a few years ago might have been considered fringe are now really an accepted part of the mainstream, and they're being made available in white-collar offices. And I think when people tell their friends and their bosses that, hey, I need to go to my meditation retreat for my vacation, you might get an eye roll, but you're probably also going to get approval to have that space to go do it.
I think the benefit of coming into the workforce now is, versus when I came into it sort of in 2005, 2006, is that over the last 10 years, we have learned the hard way of the dangers of being always on. And you slowly see, if David says, businesses realize it's in their best interest to force their employees to check out a little bit. Because we're sort of, when I wrote my article, I talked to a number of therapists and doctors who specialize in burnout, and one doctor had reconfigured her practice to only deal with people under 30, because so many of her clients were under 30 that it was to the benefit of her practice. And she tied that to sort of onset of social media and this sense of always having to be on. But the flip side of that is, you know, if you think 15 years ago, yoga used to be a fringe thing too, and it's now, you stand for a yoga class, like I'm going to have a coffee. So I think what we're seeing right now is we're realizing the price we are paying from the digital lifestyle we are living. And we sort of were the first generation to have this put on us full time, and we're the first generation to suffer the effects, and we're seeing ourselves implement rules and regulations to keep us all from going to pieces. Before the age of 30 or 40, you know, we shouldn't all be feeling like this at such a young age. This used to be something that people at the end of their careers, at age 16-year retirement, would feel, and we're all feeling it so young. So I think if there is still a stigma against meditation or mindfulness, that it's diminishing, and also it's to your benefit to shrug it off, to pursue this, because
I would
we
say,
do not want to get to the point that either Dean and I were at. It's a terrible, terrible place to be, a hard recovery.
and I would say if it's right for you, and I'm not going to sit up here and proselytize.
Although if you're here,
everyone.
presumably you think it is right.
Well, I mean, I don't
We're
know.
experimenting with it.
I mean, I think more there's natural curiosity. I'm not one to say that everyone should be meditating. I think one of the things that Dina is doing, which is interesting, is presenting a range of types of meditation in a very practical way. I mean, it's very ambitious what you're doing. You're saying that these very short exercises can actually have very meaningful and lasting impact throughout the day, and they can be drawn on in different situations. So if you could just very briefly, I mean, just kind of a very quick synopsis of the 4 types of meditation, the teach of the path, and what you think each one can offer each person throughout the day.
Yeah. Although, first, can I take it up a level and like different options for avoiding burnout to a very high level? Because I think what we're talking about in the end is disrupting the workday. And look, it's funny that a lot of us come from the startup world. I mean, the list emerged as something I find myself increasingly, one way to avoid burnout is to say, I need to get out and I need to look at art. I don't know what it is. In the last 6 months, I'm like obsessed with going out to look at art. So I might work, and then you look at art and it's inspiring and the design is beautiful and it literally makes me better than I thought. So it might be yoga, it might be art, it might be taking a walk, whatever it is, find your thing. And I think we're increasingly learning that some people work well at 90-minute bursts on and maybe 90-minute bursts off. 90 on, 90 off. It might just not be that we're meant to work, right? You know, we get out to 6 p.m. So I would encourage you guys to figure out what's for you. To answer your question, so David and I certainly are huge believers in meditation. It works for us. We have to think it works for a lot of people. At the path we teach 4 different types of meditation. Or we usually say that all the thousands of types of meditation can be fit into 4 categories. The first would be mindfulness, which we talked about, which is really good at focus and also at stress release. So the second is Vedic meditation, which is meditating on a mantra. Some people call it transcendental meditation, ATM, and that is really good at making you more freedom. There's another type of meditation which is energizing, so that would be something like yoga or martial arts or pranayama breathing. Some of you guys may have some yoga class. Breathe in one nose, hold it in, breathe out. Those are all ways to bring very natural energy into your body. And then there's another type of meditation which will help you accomplish your goals. So maybe the deep breaths, maybe the breathe class, or help you or whatever it is. So because we're teaching the pretty large groups of the path, we just figure out what is compassion. So we thought there's a little more of that in the art. And so we teach the type of compassion, or some people would call that meditation. But yeah, as David said, we're giving people different tools to pull from the day. So if you feel a little tired, you can do the energizing. If you need to focus on a PowerPoint deck or a formula for your startup, you can do the mindfulness meditation. If you want to be more creative, you can do the mantra. You just need tools to pull from.
Again, very, very ambitious, but they're drawing huge crowds. So I want to turn to the audience very quickly here, but I think it's a good moment to reflect. And so maybe we could just go down the line and hear from each of you one more time. If you could sum it up, what do you think it is at a high level that is now allowing you to kind of stay above the burden, if you will? We're still very busy. We still have a lot on your plate, of course. But what it is that is allowing you to kind of not get pulled down here?
From my perspective as a mental health counselor, by the time people come to me, they're definitely burned out and overwhelmed. So I definitely say it should be something as a preventative measure, like before you get there. And if it still seems like something you can think about, one thing what I'm really trying to do with my company is to not get people thinking about mental illness or mental health. I always say emotional health, and because it's really your emotions that are the problem. What is that? No? I'm not kidding. Somebody did that to me. But it's usually your emotions that are the issue, because emotions aren't logical. Like everybody has been in love with someone they knew they shouldn't love. It's like your brain is very logical. And emotions aren't logical. It's like, why do I feel so strongly about this thing that I never met? You know what I mean? And so like it's a conflict between your brain, which is logical, and your emotions, which is really illogical. So what meditation or mindfulness, or even just, and again, it doesn't have to be for one time, like the discipline, it'll come like 17 seconds, like during the day, at lunch, whatever, remember, it accumulates, and eventually that's what discipline and practice is. So the reason I think that however you do it, and again, meditation can be running, anything that you're not thinking, it's like, even if you're doing meditation, if you are fully focused in that moment, intentional, and appreciating it, it's because it regulates your emotions, which again are logical, and people have a hard time controlling. So it's really about attention, emotion, and awareness. Those are all of your problems can be reduced if you can control those things.
Right. So find your thing and what it is that can do the shit out of it.
Yes!
Dina, briefly.
I would say that giving the confidence to just be authentic. I was really not authentic in my first company, and I just spoke up for myself. Never said what was on my mind. And now I do. So I'm looking to ask people on my team, who do you know about these stories? And a lot of them, I don't know this well. I don't. So gain the confidence to be authentic, don't feel like you need to pretend that you know everything. I think that is actually what caused me to burn out for the first time, is not being authentic. So find that confidence to have people, including your team. It could be, well, we're going to do everything. Just say,
do the shit out of your emotional health, be authentic, and
We should all work on the idea that time off is a reward for good behavior or production at work, and with that, you think time off, be it turning off your phone, going on vacation, meditating for 17 seconds in the morning, going for a run, whatever it is a requirement for good work. That is your priority, and everything else is secondary. And we sort of need to invert how we think about time off.
that's great. That's great.
Just one real quick to that thing, because it's so true. You're gonna do it anyway. You're gonna waste time on Facebook. You're gonna spend like an hour dreading whatever you have to do. You're gonna take that time off anyway, where you're not productive. So it's true. Like making it like an actual part of every day.
Let's open it up to the audience. Questions, comments, your tips, please.
Okay. I have a two-part question. First, I feel like I know it's a requirement for good work for me, and I try to observe it in little ways every day, but it's really hard, and I'm shocked by how hard it is for me, even though like I'm meditating in my off time, or I'm really good at unplugging when I get off work. Just like feel like I deserve like that space when other people aren't, and comparing myself to looking like I'm doing less work than other people, and not feeling self-consciousness even. So I was wondering what you guys have to say about ways to, I guess, build bravery in that sense, or that you see people maybe willing to approach their bosses to explain what they're doing. And then this quick second part of my question is, how have you seen people bring mindfulness to companies beyond maybe suggesting, having practice or doing a different way?
I can speak to that, but why don't we hear from others on the first part?
Yeah, I think when you do good work, I think I worked at Business Insider, and when you do good work, that speaks for itself. I think showing your boss that you're busy is less valuable to them, to yourself, to everyone, than actually doing good work. And that will do that in any business and any organization, that when what you are producing is quality, how you're doing it becomes less interesting to the people you're doing the good thing for. And then just by dint of putting in good work, people tend to emulate you. So if you're somebody that does high level work and shows up for work at 10 o'clock in the morning and takes a 2-hour nap, and believe me, after 6 months of you producing high level work, a lot of people are going to be following you. I think that idea of seeing everyone else is something we all combat every day, and it's easy. I took myself off Instagram for that reason, because I felt like it was becoming too much, and you can take breaks from it. But the fact of the matter is, it's actually under your control. You don't have to look. It's very difficult not to look. It's like driving by a car accident every day and saying, "Oh, just don't look at what's going on." But the fact of the matter is, you don't have to look. So if it becomes to the point where you are feeling terrible about yourself because of what you're seeing, stop looking. I realize it's part of it now, but it is. I think that's at the end of the day.
It's really cool. Just here very quickly, I think women especially start to really realize that you're the star of your life. To play the star role. And to do what you need to do. Get that thing to do. You deserve that. You would do it for your best friend, like people in this space, or put yourself in at least this way.
Compassion actually is a useful lens there. Actually doing compassion to yourself. A lot of times when we start doing compassion meditation, it's very easy to be compassionate to everyone else, much harder to be kind and compassionate to ourselves.
But don't let you really give you the bandwidth to be more compassionate to others and just start with yourself. Give yourself a play the star role. Yeah, that's probably it. Because even hearing about the therapist, all the clients are like, God damn, like really? So yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm actually doing my first TEDx about this. It's the culture of comparison, and it's more than FOMO. It's like everybody else is doing like at 100 or whatever, and you're at 80. Like you're always going to be catching up, and it is hard, but it requires discipline. And I think the main thing to do, like that again, one thing to practice is to flip it. I used to always be like everything's important, everything's urgent, and I read this book called but I'll look it up and I'll send it. I want to say The Essentialist,
this, then you're probably a high performance person and you sound like you're in a high pressure situation. You know, it's all about choices. Nothing is going to happen by accident. You know, like, so like, to your point about mindfulness, if you're super duper intentional on where you want to be and feeling in control, then you won't be like the victim of your circumstances, you know? And like, again, you get to choose this life. You're 27, like, you're so young, you get to choose it. So every day decide what you want to do and do that, and everything else will rise up to that.
Let's get to another question just briefly. I characterize it. The question was, how is mindfulness and meditation showing up in the workplace? And I'd say broadly there's two categories, top down and bottom up. Top down is the CEO or senior executive gets religion and decides they want to proselytize. And it's a little scary to kind of use the religious analogy because people, the hair stands up on the back of their neck. But it's true. At Green Mountain Coffee, the CEO was a meditator and said, my employees are meditating. Same thing happened to Ed. At Google, employee number 7 or 72, Shade Meng Tan, he said, we're going to start an emotional intelligence mindfulness course, and bam, search inside yourself report. So when you have someone at a very high level and they decide they can do it, they have buy-in, they have credibility with HR, with executives. It's very easy, frankly, for it to happen. Maybe harder for it to take root and endure because it's not quite as organic, but easy for it to go out and move at scale. At companies like Intel, General Mills, Adobe, the list goes on, it's been bottom up. One employee has found that it's been really impactful to themselves. Then they started with just close associates. Other people would notice changing their behavior and say, what's different? What's going on? And he said, I've meditated. If you have any interest, meet me at lunch, meet me after work. And they started, frankly, like little sitting groups, little sanghas inside the workplace. And those then developed into broader HR-sponsored programs. So at Intel, Intel, Adobe, and General Mills, for example, those very small groups now have rolled out and are incorporating thousands of people across offices in all the different countries where these companies operate. And so it's really extraordinary. But it can go both ways. I'm happy to tell you. Let's have another question.
It's funny because we're actually working on a professional wellness thing where we're looking for pilots for in your corner to subsidize it. We do it on a monthly model. So happy helping employees.
Please.
This is kind of questions for anyone. I think probably all of you can speak to it. When you find that you are, falling into this sort of reactive pattern of the day, where you're answer an email and you're turn on something else and start thinking, how do you navigate out of that and get back to a place where you're being more productive?
Not in the middle of the workday here in the office, but I will setting my phone off when I go to bed at night. It's similar to the screen, which is turn off the screen, pick, and if you're at that sort of edge where you feel like you're moving to draw back, turn it off at 7. I guarantee you, one night of turning your phone off or your screen off at 7, the world will not end. And if it is ending, someone will come and get you. Probably your neighbor. Like, there's nothing that's going to happen that you're really going to miss, but the benefits of literally turning the internet off for 4 hours is easy.
But I think she's asking in the middle of the
Oh,
workday.
in the middle of the
midst
workday.
of the workday.
I know.
Yeah.
17 seconds. I swear. Yeah.
Science. I didn't
And
make
you're
that up.
falling into that pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorting emails.
Oh,
And the phone is keeping emails and like, you really have things that you want to get to that are on like your list of things to do.
Like, that list is, your life isn't going anywhere. Decide to do one thing
So-
on your list.
There are a lot of actual very specific techniques that can be helpful. One of them is, and this is taught in mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is kind of a formalized introduction to mindfulness, which is available in all sorts of places around New York City, and I highly recommend it. But they actually say in your office, find one place, which is, and you don't have to call it like your mindful area, but it's a place where you stop, where you just get out of your head. And so at the New York Times, for me, it's a particular hallway that I walk a few times a day. Where when I'm in that hallway, I don't look at my phone when I'm walking. I don't think about the last thing I have to do and the next thing I have to do. But I actually just try to feel myself and feel my body and feel my feet taking one step at a time. And it's just, it's a physical location that I'm associated with slowing down. Those associations with a physical place are So some people do it in the elevator. So some people say, when I'm in the elevator, I'm not chatting with people, I'm not listening to the gossip of the people next to me. I'm actually just feeling the sensation of my body moving up the building in the elevator. And so that's one, for example. Another people use is when the phone rings, pause. So actually don't just grab the phone, but actually let it ring 3 times after it, and actually just feel your breath, and actually maybe check in with your intention and say, well, who do I think might be on the phone? How I'm going to approach this phone call? And just those little tricks, little habit changes to slow down in the middle of the day. Those are a couple that people have found useful.
And one other thing that you can do, I have a friend who begins every work day, so I do this now after meditation, one last step. You sit down and write out all the things that I want to get done today. It shouldn't be too long. Here are the things I have to do today, and then that's when I'll go and tackle them first. So I would say maybe we'll combine them, like go to that place, or at least go somewhere. Write down what are the things that I want to do. Maybe you take 17 seconds to meditate, to shift your focus. By the way, huge props to you for noticing that you're doing that. I think that's amazing. Most people don't notice that. They just consider that quote work. So the fact that you see, oh, I'm responding, that's actually a type of mindfulness, which is called noting. And that's really, really great. So you feel on yourself for doing that. And then start doing the things that you want to do. Another trick that I give to friends that don't meditate is saying in the back of your head, what's the most important thing I can do right now? It's probably not responding to that random person on Facebook or even responding to that email. What's the most important thing for me to do right now? And just start getting that note and telling yourself that all day. That gets you into that proactive mode of that being
But don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah, please in the front.
I was just gonna say that this was never like a formal discussion with my husband, except that he always said no TV in the bedroom, no TV in the bedroom, because he's kind of insomnia. We have no screen in our bedroom. I don't ever walk my phone, and when I was working last, I had 2 phones. I don't ever walk my phone, my iPad, my laptop into the bed. It's just, and we don't even make a big thing about it. We don't talk about it, but neither is brings any screens into the bedroom. If he's not there and I like take a nap and it's easier to set my iPhone alarm, I don't sleep as well because my phone is in my room. If I'm traveling for work and I'm in a hotel room, I don't sleep as well because my phone is in my room. I've gotten so used to there is no phone in the bedroom, and I think it really, really helps. And I have my own Achilles heels and other things, but like that's kind of just like a really big thing that you could probably easily do.
That's my New Year's resolution to get a clock, so my phone isn't my clock.
Yeah, it's true. The phone is my clock really becomes this
Like open it,
Yeah.
every year.
Please.
Yeah, to her point, when I got a new job 2 years ago, I had become a slave to my previous job, and I was so junior in my role that I was like, oh, what I'm doing is not nearly that important, but I need to be on all the time answering these emails. So when I started this new job, I thought, this is my time to kind of reset myself and set the expectations of my employer. So there were times, basically every day I leave my phone in my purse. Like there's a whole night where when I go to bed and I need to plug my phone in, I live in the studio, so it doesn't sit in a separate room, but I'm like, oh wow, I didn't take my phone in my purse at all tonight. And I think like some rules that I set for myself are, one, I know that I'm not a good home worker, and I also don't want to bring work to my husband. So if I need to work late, I work late at the office. I don't leave the office, then continue to work at home. Because when I'm home with my husband. And then 2, it was really amazing. I think it was 6 months ago at my office, we had this nutrition seminar, and somebody had mentioned, energy at the workplace and all sorts of things. And we got on the topic of turning your phone off when you got home. And so many people who, again, not to downplay anybody's roles or their job, but like aren't the COO of our company or like anything, or like I can't possibly turn my phone off. And I was like, but we're doing the same job. I turn my phone off. Nobody dies, to your point. And actually, the expectations of my clients and my colleagues are such that I will not respond to you, and nobody cares. Like,
I think you're
nobody
making
cares.
a really, really important point, which is when younger people talk to me about starting new jobs and the expectations, which are high and huge, and I appreciate. Set those expectations early. Don't answer that email immediately. Set up times that you answer. Set the expectation that you're not someone that responds immediately. Just do it. And people will respect that, and they'll just acknowledge that that's how you work, and you won't be the person they expect either prioritizing your own mental health and setting those expectations around it in a reasonable manner at your workplace is very, very, very important. It's something I think that when you're at a somewhat more junior level is something you can do.
We have time for,
Just really quick, people don't care as much as you think they do, you know, and also like they really don't. As much as you're worried about like, oh my god, what are they gonna think of? They sent that email off and they expect you one day to get back. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I get emails back 3 days, and I know everybody's busy. Really, really quick. The fact that you're worried about this, you are people. Your work is important to you, so you're gonna do it well anyway. There are people who just aren't like that, you know. So if you're worried about this, you're probably performing like at a 90%, like in the top, like what's probably opposite, in the 10 percentile. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, not far up, but like, I hired a woman recently who is younger than me. Like, I think this is her second job, and literally like works at 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 8 a.m., noon, 7 p.m., like nonstop working. And she's ever just like, I'm gonna work from home today. I'm like, you're good, you know, because I know she's gonna take care of it. You're gonna be fine. Like, you're doing everything that, like, the life is infinite. You know, like, I mean, nothing. Like, you have so much time to get it done. You really do it.
Don't answer emails at 3 a.m.
Don't answer emails unless you're good at it. She's a night person and I'm a morning person. I'm at 6 a.m. She's at 3 a.m. And we get it done. You're gonna get it done, and it's trust. Trust yourself. Be loyal to yourself. Be good to yourself, and that's you'll be at optimal performance all the time. Don't worry so much.
we have time for one more question. Stephen has your hand up.
So I am a firm convert to the path. Thank you, Dina. I tried to meditate before my daughter's girl and children didn't stick, but this really stuck. Monday morning, every Monday morning.
Every Monday and Thursday now, we double.
Coming in from Westchester.
Oh my God, we love you.
But I have this question, if, you know, trying to integrate this into my daily life. You and I have had this conversation, I wanted to ask David and anybody else. I want something on this.
Headspace.
That's basically great.
It's the best.
He's not gonna overhaul the one.
Go ahead.
So
No.
let's face it.
There's a free option. That's kind of premium.
Dario is about to come out with one. You can also set it timer.
There's a app called the Insight Timer, which is very good for formalizing a meditation practice and keeping track, giving you reminders.
And I'm making that happen too. I feel like having it happen.
You just have to do it right when you wake up, otherwise it's not gonna happen. You could get out of bed and do it. You do it in bed, you fall asleep.
Again, that works for some people, but other people find it
Right.
most effective to
And most
meditate at the end of the day. Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. There are many, many ways to do this. There's no one
There's every
right way
to
to
do
do
it.
this.
Yes. Yes.
We have time for one more question. You
Well,
guys
you're
are
just
hand up.
your own stop line.
Me?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I just had a question. I work in news, and so I'm curious for you and for Glynnis too, because you worked in news for a long time. It's a profession where some of these rules might not necessarily work. Like, I can't really set a rule if I won't look at my email for the first hour.
I'm a mergers and acquisitions reporter.
Right.
I write stories
So-
at 2 a.m.
Right, exactly. And, you know, like the Paris thing happened last week, and I was, you know, on the phone with my boss at 5:30 in the morning. Like, there's not really an option to do that when you're sort of chained to the breaking news cycle. So I'm curious, like, what techniques you guys recommend for people who are in fields or professions where we are sort of chained to external circumstances, and we can't necessarily like make these kinds of rules about like when we look at email or when we look at devices. We sort of have to live and die by those things. So I'm curious, you know, I know you two have both worked in news, so I'm curious what thoughts you have on that.
And Rachel was communicating with me psychically
Yes.
and suggesting that it's also true for parents. I am a mergers and acquisitions reporter with a 9-month-old girl. So I have a horribly unpredictable schedule. A delightfully unpredictable schedule. And it's harder. There's no like panacea silver bullet. It means it's just harder when you have an unpredictable schedule. But I think what Bea said was really instructive, which is that if you are a high performer and you are on call at 5:30, then just maybe it doesn't even have to be explicit. Set the expectation and give yourself the space to have time if you were, you know, up at 5:30 and working on a Tuesday and it's silent on a 9 a.m. on a Thursday. It's okay to be a few minutes late to the office and give yourself time to take care of yourself. And if your boss gives you a hard time, maybe have a frank discussion. As we all discussed for the last hour, it's important to take care of yourself. And only by taking care of ourselves can we avoid burnout. On that note, I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank our panelists, Bea Arthur, Dina Kaplan, Glynnis MacNicol, and very much want to thank Liz and Noel for hosting us. Thank you all. There's wine and cheese in the back.
We want to thank David, who's our first male moderator.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, you did. Go take some deep breaths.
Oh, no,
17 seconds to deep breath them. I feel like I'm being long for 17 seconds. No, no.